Hello, students. So this is Madam explaining about the ecosystem chapter. So today we'll be learning the concept of energy flow. So in the energy flow, you know what is energy, how it is been created, why is energy needed. Energy is needed to do work. So now let us understand what is the energy flow in the ecosystem. So yeah. The energy, the source of energy, usually it is sun. So here the first point I have written, sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystem except deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem. The second point is of the incident solar radiation less than 50% and is photosynthetically active radiation. Photosynthetically active radiation means the amount of energy used by the plant for the photosynthesis is called as PAR, that is photosynthetically active radiation. The plants and photosynthetic, the third point, plants and photosynthetic and chemosynthetic bacteria such as autotroph fix solar radiant energy to make the food. You know the definition of photosynthesis. So what is photosynthesis? The plant prepares its own food in the presence of the sunlight, that is conversion of the radiant energy, solar energy into the chemical energy, that is food, or the only we call it as photosynthesis. So for the photosynthesis, the main raw material is sunlight. So that what it is, solar radiant energy. Next one, the plant capture only how much 2 to 10% of the PAR. This energy sustain the entire living world. Means in the earth consists of most of the plant system which are regarded as the producers or the autotrophs. Because of autotrophs only heterotrophs can be alive. How? Because heterotrophs cannot prepare their own food. So heterotrophs are dependent upon the autotrophs for the food. So autotrophs means the producer, nothing but that of the plants. So the plants depend upon the sun for the energy for the preparation of the food. Okay. So when we study the photosynthesis, it obeys the ecosystem, obeys the second law of thermodynamics. Why the thermodynamics laws are being initiated into ecosystem means, see, when we learn the law of thermodynamics, first law of thermodynamics, what does it tell? The energy can be neither created nor destroyed, but it can be transferred from one form to another. Thus, the total amount of energy in the universe will remain constant. That is the first law. Then coming to the second law, every activity involving energy is transferred in accompanied with the dissipation of the energy. Thus, some energy lost as a form of a heat energy. The best example for this is a light energy which is converted into potential energy, that is nothing but the photosynthesis. So here the second law of thermodynamics, that what it tells, when the energy flows from one organism to the other organism, it flows in there is a loss of heat. There is a amount of energy which is lost in the form of heat. Example I'll tell you. See, when a frog eats a caterpillar, the caterpillar becomes a food for the frog. Do you understand? Now the total amount of food is caterpillar. That caterpillar energy will be transferred into the frog body. You understand? When the frog is eaten by snake, what happens? The energy of the frog is transferred into the snake. So when snake starts eating that frog, it needs energy to break down that food. Okay, so that will be in the form of heat. So that what is called as a second law of thermodynamics. They need a constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecule. It helps in the contract of the entropy. Okay, so this is regarding the law of thermodynamics, how it is involved in energy flow. Okay. So next, in energy flow, the first component for any tropic level of the ecosystem, the first tropic level will be occupied by the producers. So just now I told you, the whole biosphere will be having the producer, that are the plants. Plants are called as autotrophs. They are the only one organ which can produce their own food. So heterotrophs are dependent on the autotrophs. So the producers means usually the plants. So here the producers means what? They are the first point as such. They are the organism, they synthesize the food. In a terrestrial ecosystem, major producers are herbaceous and woody plants. Okay. Then coming to the primary producers in an aquatic ecosystem. They are phytoplankton, that is the plants which are submerged in the river or in the sea. Phytoplankton, algae and higher plants. Then third one, the energy trapped by the producer is passed on to a consumer or the organism which dies, means the grass if it is eaten by a rat or a rabbit, when the rabbit is eaten by an higher organism like vulture, eagle. When the vulture and eagle dies, it is eaten by the decomposer. So, or the consumer organism dies. So, the energy will be passed from one organism to the other organism, which we call it as energy flow. Okay. So, in that the first tropic level will be occupied by the producers. Without the producers, energy flow will not start. So next is the second is consumers. The producers, see these are the producers. Producers are eaten by the primary consumers. So this is what primary consumer. Primary consumer is a grasshopper. Grasshopper is eaten by the frog and the frog is becomes the secondary consumer. Then frog is eaten by the snake. The snake becomes the tertiary consumer. Now snake is eaten by a vulture. So here this becomes the tertiary consumer only, and if this hawk or the vulture dies, it will decay. It will be the energy will be moved on to the decomposer. So this is what the food chain. So in the food chain only, usually we learn the energy flow. So here, see here I have written. These are the animals that directly or indirectly depend on plants for food. They include what? First one is primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. So primary consumers will be herbivorous. They feed on the plants. Uh, Examples are insects, birds, mammals, mollusca. Secondary consumers are primary carnivorous. They feed on the herbivorous. Example is frog, fox, man, etc. Tertiary consumers means they are the secondary carnivorous. They feed on the primary carnivorous such as tiger, lion, etc. So this is the energy flow in a food. So we have learned the second component, that is second component is consumers. So energy flow here in this, the chain of feeding relationship between what is food chain for this question. This is the answer. So the chain of feeding relationship between a different organism is called a food chain. There are two types of food chain, that is GFC and DFC. GFC means grazing food chain. DFC means detritus food chain. So yesterday video you have learned regarding decomposition, where the litter, dead animals, waste and leaves, bark, flower, all those waste materials will be undergoing decomposition. That waste or the litter we call it as detritus. So detritus also follows a food chain which we call it as D. Into food chain. Okay. So yeah, grazing food chain. Grazing food chain means usually we find in a grassland only. So here we have seen the primary consumer feeds on the living plants, that is producers. Examples here. The producer, that is grass. The grass is eaten by the goat, which is the primary consumer. The goat is eaten by the man and the man is said to be the secondary consumer. So this is a grazing food chain. So here in grazing food chain, one more example they have given, that is cabbage eaten by the caterpillar, and the caterpillar is eaten by a bird. So this is also grazing food chain. Now coming to the deleterious food chain, in deleterious food chain you should be knowing it starts from the decayed material. Okay, so you can see death of the organism is the beginning of the deleterious food chain. Here, primary consumer feeds on the dead organic material. Here you can see the dead animals or the waste of the animals when they die. That waste, animal waste or the plant waste, it is eaten by the beetles or the woodlouse, and these termites or the beetles are eaten by the birds. So here the chain starts only with the organic matter. Okay, so these are the two types of the food chain. So next, detritus is made up of, I told no, decomposer, that is saprophytes such as fungi and bacteria. They secrete a digestive enzyme that break down the detritus into the simple inorganic materials which are absorbed by them. Thus they get energy and the nutrients. So in this picture you can see this is bacteria pseudomonas, which is a decomposer, and this is mushroom, which is also a decomposer. So here fruits are rotting. Okay, the fruits are rotting by which? Fungus. So it is decomposing the fruits. The next slide. This is what this drawing which they have here. It is the food web here. So in the aquatic ecosystem, GFC is a major conductor for a flow of energy, whereas in terrestrial ecosystem, a large amount of energy flows through the detritus food chain than by the grazing food chain. Detritus food chain may be connected with the grazing food chain at some levels. Some organism of DFC are the food. Prey means what? Food to the GFC animals. Animals like cockroaches, crows, human, etc. are omnivorous. What do you mean by omnivorous? The organism which is dependent on the both autotrophs and also some of the heterotrophs. We call it as omnivorous. Such interconnection of the food chains are called as food web. The interconnection of the food chain only is called as a food web. Here you can see here there are two types of food chain. One is a terrestrial food chain forest, another one is a grassland food chain. You can see here. Here you see the grass. Here it is a corn in a field which is eaten by a grasshopper. Grasshopper is eaten by a frog, and the frog is eaten by a snake. And when the snake is eaten by an eagle, and when the eagle dies, it is eaten by the decomposers. This is one chain. Coming to the another chain means here you can see the butterflies, the flowers are honey, and the flower is sucked by the honeybee. Honey butterfly will get the energy. This butterfly or fruit fly or dragon, it is eaten by the frog. As such, the frog is eaten by the eagle. Eagle is eaten by the wolf. Wolf, when it dies, it is also a food for the decomposer. So there are nearly 3 to 4 food chains which are interconnected here. So this is called as a food web. Okay, so here they have shown a tropic level. What is a tropic level means? A specific place of organism in the food chain is known as tropic level. So here there are 4 tropic levels which we can see. The first tropic levels are the producers. So producers means especially plants. Then the secondary tropic level is primary consumers, which are herbivorous such as zooplankton, grasshopper, cow. Then a secondary consumer is a third tropic level, which is carnivore. Carnivorous means organism which is depend upon the flesh. Then tertiary consumer, it is fourth tropic level, that is the top carnivore, that is the man and the lion. So these are how many? There are the Here we have shown the four tropic level: producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, and the fifth tropic level usually it will be decomposers. Okay, so this is a flow of energy in the different tropic levels. This diagram is given in the textbook also. So here you can see the sunlight is used by the plants for photosynthesis. Plants are eaten. This is the producers. The plants are eaten by the secondary, that is consumer, primary consumer. Then this caterpillar is eaten by a secondary consumer, that is carnivore, the bird. Okay, so there is a flow of there is loss of heat and flow of energy. They have two, they have shown. One is loss of heat, another one is flow of energy. Okay, so this bird, when it is eaten by a bigger bird, when it dies, okay, there is a loss of it. So this is a fourth tropic level or tertiary consumer. So this how there is a flow of energy. What do you mean? This is the second law of thermodynamics telling when the energy flows from one organism to another organism, there is loss of heat. This is called as second law of thermodynamics. Okay. Yeah. So the amount of energy decreases at a successive tropic levels when an organism dies. Here the rat have shown the death of a rat. It becomes a dead biomass, that is dead status. It's an energy source for the decomposers. So decomposers means the energy goes to the fungi and the bacteria. Organism at each tropic level depends on those at a lower tropic level of the energy. So this is complete the dead mass also. In the decompose also there is a flow of energy. The amount of living material in a tropic level at a given time is called as a standing crop. Here you can see this is a fresh grasses. Here we have shown the accumulation of the wood here. So this is what we call it as a standing crop. That means each tropic level has a certain amount of living material at a particular time, which we call it as a standing crop. So it is measured as a biomass or number in a unit area. So biomass of a species is measured in terms of a fresh or dry weight. The dry weight is more accurate because it is exact mass of a body which remains constant. So here we have overpiled these wood pieces and kept here, which we could regard it as a biomass, and it is called, it is of the dry weight which remains constant. So the number of tropic level in GFC is restricted as it follows 10% law. This is actually a question. It is the herbivorous that feeds on the producers get 10% of the energy stored in plants. That is 2 joules. Okay, so the remaining 18 joules are lost to the environment. So carnivore feed on the herbivorous will be able to store only zero point 0.2 joules in a fresh form. So here what happens when the energy flows from one organism to another organism, only 10% of energy is transferred to each tropic level from the lower tropic level to higher tropic. So that is what we call it as 10%. Okay. Next we will study regarding ecological pyramids. Okay. So what is ecological pyramids? You see, it is in the pyramid shape here. The representation of the food chain in the form of a pyramid. We call it as what? Ecological pyramid. So the base of the pyramid represents what? This base, this represents the producer. Second represents the consumer, that is primary consumer, tertiary consumer, and the last will be decomposers. The apex represents the tertiary or the top level consumer. Ecological pyramids are three types. One is pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. Okay, we'll understand all the three. Okay, the first is pyramid of number. Example is grassland ecosystem. Here the tropic levels. This all This all are what the tropic levels, which is in the form of a pyramid. So we call it as pyramid of number. So as the pyramid of number goes from the producer up to the tertiary, you can see there is a decreasing in the number. There is not a increasing in number. So when you come like this, it is increasing in number. This side it is decreasing in number. So here nearly the numbers we have given here. Primary producers means the grass. The number of grass will be usually more only. So here we have considered 58 lakh 42 thousand of plants or the grass are eaten by 7 lakh 8,000 of the primary consumer, which are nothing but the rabbits. Now these rabbits are eaten by the snakes, which we call it as a secondary consumers, that is SC, that is nearly 3 lakh 54,000. These 3 lakh 54,000 snakes will be eaten by a hawk or vulture. How they are said to be what a tertiary consumer, which is represented as a TC, and the number of individual is the 3. Okay, so here you can see there is gradually decreasing in the number of the individuals where in the pyramid of numbers. So in each tropic level, the energy flows from one tropic level to another, from primary producer to consumer, then from primary consumer to secondary consumer, from secondary consumer to tertiary consumer. This is pyramid of biomass. In the pyramid of biomass, you can see there we have tried to show the dry weight here. So it shows a sharp decrease in the biomass at higher tropic levels. And you can see in the sea level, usually in the sea level, we find the inverted pyramid of biomass where small standing crops of phytoplankton supports the large standing crop of the zooplankton, and a pyramid of biomass is inverted usually in the sea level. So this is upright, this is inverted here below. So upright we will see here. So here primary producers are nearly 809 joules or kg or meter per cube it is. So it goes on decreasing where PC primary consumer is 37 kg, then secondary consumer is 11, and coming to the tertiary it is 1.5, whereas here it is inverted in the sea level. The primary consumer is nearly 21 kg and the primary producer is only 4. So this is inverted pyramid where we see in the sea. This is upright pyramid, okay, which we usually observe in the terrestrial ecosystem. Next is pyramid of energy. In pyramid of energy, primary producers convert only 1% of the energy in the sunlight available to them to NPP. Okay, the net primary productivity. This we have explained in the last video what is NPP. So here you can see it is measured in the form of a joules. So it goes on again decreasing only from the primary producers. They are written by the primary consumer. From primary consumer to secondary, see here it is was 100%, which decreases to 10%, from 10% to 1%, from 1 to 0.1, this is 0.01%. So in this way energy flow from the producers to the tertiary consumer, it goes on decreasing here. So here you can see 10,000 joules in the primary producer. So when it is eaten by the consumer is how much? 1000 joules. Then from the primary consumers are eaten by the secondary consumer, that is 100 joules. When the secondary consumers are eaten by the tertiary consumer, it is only 10. In this way, pyramid of energy in a ecosystem, when we refer usually in grassland or the not aquatic grassland only or forest ecosystem, the energy of the sunlight goes on decreasing as it flows from one or a group of organism to another organism. So ecological pyramids, any calculation of energy content, biomass or numbers has to include all the organism at the tropic level. A tropic level represents what? A functional level, not a species as such. A given species may occupy more than one tropic level in the same ecosystem at the same time. Example we have shown here, a sparrow is a primary consumer when it eats. Here we have shown what it is eating. When it eats seeds, fruit, pieces, and a secondary consumer when it eats insects and the worms. So this is regarding the functional level of the ecological pyramid. Okay. So three ecological pyramid we have learned here. The most ecosystem, all the pyramids are upright except one that is in the sea level, the pyramid of the biomass which is inverted one. So the number and the biomass that are herbivorous are more in number and biomass than the carnivorous. All energy at a lower tropic level is always more than at a higher level. So these all three types I have explained you. Okay, so inverted pyramids means so insects feeding on a big tree. Pyramid of biomass in a sea is inverted because biomass of fishes are far exceeds than that of the phytoplankton. Why inverted means here you should be knowing. So in the sea level inverted pyramid in an aquatic ecosystem means see the producers will be more in number. These producers will be eaten by a less number of small fishes, and the total number of small fishes will be eaten by a less number of big fishes. So that is why, and biomass of fish are far exceeds that of the phytoplankton. So it is always inverted. Okay. So what are the limitation of the ecological pyramid? It does not take into account the same species belonging to two or more tropic levels. Then second point is it assumes a simple food chain that almost never exists in nature. It does not accommodate a food web. Food chain is different, food web is different. Food web means it's a combination of two to three food chain only. It is a food web here. So what are saprophytes means decomposers. Decomposers are not included in the ecological pyramid even though they play a vital role in the ecosystem because see after here you can see primary producers the plants are eaten by the primary consumer. Primary is eaten by secondary consumer. Secondary consumer in this pyramid, ecological pyramid only I am telling. When tertiary consumers are eaten by the quaternary consumer, when this organism all die, they are eaten by the decomposers. But in the ecological pyramid, we don't represent the decomposers. That's what we call is this point. That is, saprophytes are not included in the ecological pyramids, even though they play a vital role in the ecosystem. Okay, children, that's all for today's class. That is the two topics I have taught you for today's class. And meet you in the next video.